Hello, this is Paul Chek. Welcome back to my video blogs. Today I have a fun one for you. It's something that I really enjoy a lot, is metaphor. And the blog today is titled, Your Life in Metaphor. Well, let's start with what a metaphor is. The word metaphor means to carry over. So if I say, for example, did you see that black cat? And you look over and you see a cat. Well, there's not really much to carry over. You saw the cat and you see that it's black and it stops there. But if I said to you, do you see that cat? It moves like a dragon. Then there would be a metaphor involved. So whatever your mind fills the space or the concept of moves like a dragon, it could be very, very different for everyone depending on their concept of a dragon. So now, even though you've seen a black cat, there's a carryover because you're sort of impregnated with this imaginary exercise or experience of wondering or knowing how that cat moves when it moves like a dragon. So Aristotle said that metaphor is using a word to describe one thing in description of something else. So for example, when we say when we're looking at someone who's very beautiful and we say, wow, that person's hot, well, we're using the word hot not the way hot is normally used. If you touch it, you're going to get burned. We're using it to describe, shall we say, sizzling beauty, which is even more metaphor. So when we're looking at our life in metaphor, we're looking for how does our life carry beyond just the activities that we do or the relationships that we have. What is behind it all? Just like when you read poetry, if you read poetry literally, it probably won't make any sense. But if you read it open to metaphor and open to imagination and suggestion, then it can, fill volumes that aren't written, but they are filled within you. So what I want to do is take you on a little exercise with this concept of your life in metaphor, and I'll take you through some steps that I use myself and show you how you can have fun with this and hopefully bring something deeply meaningful out of it that sticks with you and carries beyond. So we describe what a metaphor. It's something, a word that belongs to something being used to describe something else. So if someone says, so-and-so's in a sea of troubles, you know they're not actually standing in the ocean, you know that they're in a lot of trouble. And so the word sea of troubles carries beyond because it goes beyond just being in trouble. They're in a sea of troubles. So what I'd like you to do right now, if you need to, pause the recording when I finish telling you what to do here, and that is write down what your dream is. What is your dream for your life? However that pans out. What is your dream for your life right now? It might be to achieve a certain level of athletic success, financial success, relationship success, etc. Or you can think of it as a legacy. What is your overarching dream for your life? My overarching legacy, made very short, is the Chek Institute, and sharing as much of my life experience and knowledge with people as I can to support them in living a full, well-rounded life of learning how life works. So once you go ahead and write your dream down, then we're going to look through some metaphorical concepts which you can compare to see if your metaphor that you come up with is a dream affirmative, or if you can become aware that, wow, my metaphor isn't really one that supports my dream. So when I carry beyond myself, I might be moving in the wrong direction relative to my stated dream. So we want to now look at what are the notable positive or negative qualities or tendencies that you express. What are the notable positive or negative qualities or tendencies that you express? Positive, for example, you might be very timely, you might be very honest. Negative, you might be critical of others that aren't timely, and you might be too honest, because sometimes being too honest causes pain when you could deliver the message in a way that's appropriate for the situation as opposed to needing to be righteous, so to speak. Now you can look at yourself when you're looking at your positive negative qualities that you or tendencies that you express from the concept of the elements. So are you an earthy person? Is there something earthy about you? For example, if you're rigid, then elementally we could say that you're as rigid as a stone or brittle. We can look at water and see if water applies. Are you soaking wet with love, or are you dry? Just look to see how they relate to you. We have air. Do you think, have you been called an airhead, or do you consider yourself airheaded? Someone who's very dreamy and often forgets what they're doing. Are you more like a bird? Do you tend to soar above and beyond what is expected of you? And then fire. Are you as luminous as the sun? Or are you like the morning sun or the evening sun? My natural tendency is more like dragon's breath. So, you could say in metaphor, if someone maybe my wife was describing me, she might say Paul is like a dragon that has magical powers, but look out if he breathes fire. And so that would be a metaphorical expression. He is a fire-breathing dragon with magical tendencies, or something like that. So you can see how do you play out, and you have to be honest with yourself doing this, or it's a waste of time. So earth, water, fire, air. And then if you want to go further, you can go to what's called ether or space. Are you a spacious person, or are you compressed inside? Are you, which could also be air, are you, do you tend to hog things like space, the whole couch? There's another way to look at yourself. Animals. Is there an animal or an insect, which is an animal, that resembles you? When I was a kid and my mother asked me if I was an animal, what would I be? I always thought of myself as a lion, and I'm a Leo in the Western system. The Eastern system, a Virgo in the Western system. So as a kid, I inherently had this strong love for and connection to the lion. And when I look at the lion and how I like to work, I like to move quick and move with intensity, and then I get to where I can hand the project off to somebody else, and then I rest. But I don't particularly like long, drawn-out projects where I have to do the same thing. So those are lion-like tendencies. So if I say, I think and move like a lion, I am using metaphor because it's very hard for you to really know how a lion thinks or moves other than using your imagination. So you could say if Paul's lion-like, there's a concept of carryover that wouldn't be there if someone said Paul Chek's a holistic health practitioner. There's not very much metaphor there. And then systems or machines. Are you like a Swiss watch? Are you as beautiful as a Rolex, or as sexy as a Ferrari, or as fast as a dragster, or as strong as a front-end loader? Or Are you efficient like an Audi? So think of yourself as a system or a machine or anything else. These are just suggestions. And so when you start writing these things down, you might, for example, a negative, I'm like a bull in a china shop. Well, everybody knows what that means. That might maybe an expression of your tendency to anger or to act out. Then we'll keep those because already those are starting to paint quite an interesting and colorful picture. You start looking at yourself in metaphor and you might have, a certain kind of machine over here and some animals over here and, a bunch of water or fire in the kitchen or something like that. So you start really carrying beyond yourself. Then what qualities do you express, such as strengths, patience, intelligence, reliability? You can also correlate strengths, patience, intelligence, reliability with the animal kingdom. Are you very efficient as a hunter, like a shark? Or are you someone who is a businessman but thought of by others as a shark? These are, there's metaphor. If someone says, he's a nice guy, but be careful, he's a real shark, it means that that person appears to be nice, but when you least expect it, they're probably going to take a chunk out of you, like a shark. So look at strength, patience, intelligence, reliability, or other qualities that you express. Being loving, being patient, being nurturing, being condescending, cold, sarcastic, being reliable, being passionate, empathetic, compassionate, caring. Those are the kinds of things that you can look at, because having the awareness of the other things that we've talked about, and that helps you get to where we're getting to the final stage, which is figuring out what your life is in metaphor, so you can have a better understanding of yourself. And I'll show you mine so you understand that in a greater depth. Okay, so once you have all that, then you want to write a statement about yourself. If you can, encapsulate that into a statement, or just look at all the qualities and look at the things that are going on in your life, look at the challenges you've had, look at the qualities you've written down, and then see if you can just go into a state of open receptivity and ask the universe for support to know what your life in metaphor is, and see what comes to you, or use your creativity, your imagination, or ask others for help. A lot of people have some good brain power up there. They can give you a hand. Okay? So now when I look at myself, I say, Paul, my body is strong and healthy as a bull. I am as busy as a bee. I am grounded with roots and grow like a tree. My mind flows like a river. It is my nature to care for nature. I am a farm. I grow people. So you see, when I looked at some of the ways I feel about myself, I'm as busy as a bee. I am grounded with roots like a tree. I spend a lot of time grounding myself. Tai Chi, exercise, stonework, bare feet on the soil, meditation. And I have to do that, or I literally feel like a tree that's going to blow over in the wind of the everyday world. And I feel that if I don't live that way, I feel as though I am selling some kind of fable to people or misrepresenting my teaching. So it's against my values to live against these kinds of qualities. But we each have to find out what's in us. That's part of this process. So my mind flows like a river. Generally, when I put my mind to something, I open my heart and I ask Spirit for help, and my intuition gets turned on, and literally I've sat down and written, 8, 9 hours straight, written an entire book practically without even getting up except to go to the toilet, and my fingers hurt like hell, and wore out multiple pens doing it. So how does your mind flow? How does your mind behave? Is it more like a firefly, or is it more like a quantum supercomputer? These are the kinds of things we're looking for. So when I look at these qualities, it is my nature to care for nature. When I then think, well, what would be a good metaphor to fit those qualities? It's a farm, and I was raised on a farm. So in metaphor, Paul Chek is a farm. And on that farm, there are animals to care for. There are crops to care for. There is work to do. There's fences to mend. There's planning to be done. There's seasonal issues. There's seasonal tasks. There's seasonal challenges. And there's seasonal realities. And there's different clothes you have to wear and different tools that you need. You have to have deep concern and care for the plants and the animals, because if you don't, they get sick and die, and you lose all your investment, and you can't sustain yourself on a farm as a farmer. I have to be aware of natural law, and you can't just plant things in the winter. You have to plant them at the right time. You have to understand how animals respond. You have to know what kind of support. Wool has to come off when the weather gets hot. If you shear the sheep, and that's when the best time is. You do that in the winter, they die. So there's a lot about a farm. You have to have a solid knowledge of basics. There's many very important parallels to farming and holistic health. In fact, any mistake that you make on a farm, essentially, if you make it in your own life, produces the same results it does on a farm. And when you consider that we are essentially farming the earth, but not doing a very good job of it, then we should all potentially see ourselves as, in metaphor, living on a farm. And in metaphor, maybe we should pay more attention to how it's being farmed and participate. So there you go. There's my metaphor. I, Paul Chek, in metaphor, am a farm with some interesting animals and plenty of elements to get the job done. What does that do for a carryover for me? It means that when I look at my life, or when I'm in a challenge, I could simply say to myself, well, if I was on the farm, what would my father probably do right now? Or what would I do with my knowledge, and include what my father might do? Or what might some of the great farmers that I've studied do about this issue? For example, Rudolf Steiner, founder of biodynamic farming. Whatever your metaphor is, it carries you beyond, and it allows you now to have an expanded awareness of who you are, how you live, and what moves beyond you, what shows up before you're there, and what's there when you're gone. So play with that exercise, using your imagination, your creativity, and using honest self-assessment and introspection, and being brave enough to look at the negative qualities and realize they may be negative in some regards, but they're also the things that make you unique. Imagine if we took all the negative qualities out of all the actors playing, the evil or the dark roles in movies. Well, they'd be flat as a pancake. Nobody would go. So it's not an exercise in self-criticism or excessive self-judgment. It's just an exercise in saying, who am I really? Let's not bullshit ourselves. Who am I really? And how do I see myself in metaphor? And so how do I carry myself beyond? And we finish by saying, is the metaphor congruent with the dream? Well, my dream, as I stated, is the Chek Institute, and it is an institute of holistic health. And my metaphor is that I am a farm. And I experience life through the eyes and ears and senses and awarenesses of someone who was raised on a farm. And because those two are congruent, if I manage myself in my own life and my own relationships with the same principles that the farm metaphor carries, I stay congruent with my dream. So when you look at your metaphor, if your metaphor is I'm as flighty as a bird and as transparent as Madonna, but you run a major corporation that makes secret technologies, you might have a problem. So look at your metaphor and look at your dream and ask yourself, does living this way move me in the direction of my North Star? Or am I moving sideways? Or am I moving backwards? And if you're moving backwards and that's really who you are, then you have to ask yourself, is my dream really the right dream for who I am? Or did I make that dream up to please somebody else or to try to fit in or out of a fantasy instead of a deep sense of connection and a sense of I can do this because my heart's into it? If you get your dream aligned with your metaphor, you will find that you manifest much more efficiently, much more effectively, and you're much more committed to growing yourself in relationships because you essentially know what you live for, and your heart tells you when your actions, your thoughts, your words, your deeds to self and others are actually pulling you off the dream line. And imagine you're a bird that's migrating and it has magnetite in its brain and it feels the electromagnetic field and it knows when it's flying home, so to speak. But if you distract that bird with alcohol or drugs or side shows like buying up 1 million air filters and hoping to get rich quick or some multi-level scam, then the bird part of you that knows you're moving in the wrong direction starts to vibrate and say, oh, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? But then you get good enough after a while to just imagine yourself doing that, and you know it doesn't really fit your metaphor, right? Selling air filters isn't really that connected to my farm, although I could make it connected if we consider that most farms are in-house. But when it gets right down to it, it's not directly moving in the right direction for me. Encouraging people to eat well, supporting local farmers, educating people on the things that are essential to taking care of themselves, that's more important. And if I made a pile of money selling air filters, it would distract me from who I really am, and my bird would feel that sense of being pulled in the wrong direction. So to conclude, I'd like to leave you with a few tips. 1, this exercise will enhance your awareness of yourself and your life. And without awareness, we cannot be conscious and we cannot choose what is dream affirmative. Then we have being aware of your dream and your direction. Many people are not conscious of that. So as the old saying goes, if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. You know, quantum physics says it is looking or your guided intention that collapses the wave function and produces a particle out of all possibilities, a superpositional state. So knowing what our dream is and orienting ourselves to it in quantum physics language would be to use the power of unconditional love, which would be the spiritual element of this, to energize our choice, since unconditional love or pure potential never says no. Look at the qualities of your metaphor and then change or enhance your metaphor, and make sure, as I said earlier, that your metaphor and your dream or your direction support each other, as I alluded to earlier. And then be more than words can say. Be more than words can say. So experiment with that. Thanks for joining me today. Hope you have fun. Hope you enjoy these deeper meditations on yourself. And I think that's what we all need to grow. See you soon.